Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, boys and girls, and a warm welcome to you to Redeemer Kids Online.
How has your week been? Have you had a fantastic time back at school this week? I wonder.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Kids, we've been learning all about kids of the Bible. We heard about Joseph, we've heard about Samuel, and we've heard about David. And each of them had a miraculous story. This week, we're hearing all about a young man named Daniel. But before we dive into that, I think you know what's coming up. It's time to leap to your feet and enjoy a fun, energetic wiggle time. So, as always, make sure you've got some space around you. Jump up to your feet and get energetic. If you just follow the actions I do and try and keep up, guys. So let's start running on the spot. Here we go, running along. Oh, it's a nice jog. We're speeding up now. How fast can you run? Can you run like a cheetah? Oh, and let's bring it back now to a nice little jog. Let's stretch up to the ceiling. Oh, let's stretch down to the floor. Oh, stretch to the sides. Here we go. Oh. Now let's do some star jumps. How many star jumps can you do? See if you can keep up with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's enough star jumps. Now let's see if we can jump and touch the ceiling with some jumps. I'm going to start really low with my jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, there's some good jumps there, guys. Right, what's our next activity? I think we're going to do some hopping. So hop on our left leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now to your right foot, quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, guys, I think I've got an ample amount of blood rushing through my system as we speak. So what better way to calm down than to have a little story with Abby.
Well, we hope that you got up and moving and that you have got some blood running through your bodies, and now you can have a seat, grab a drink, have something to eat, because it's time for story time. So we're going to be reading from the book of Daniel, and that's found at the end of the Old Testament. So if you've got a Bible, see if you can find where Daniel is, and we're going to be reading from chapter 1, so right at the beginning of Daniel. Okay, so if you're ready, I'll begin. When Nebuchadnezzar first marched into Jerusalem, he arrested the king and his court and took them back to Babylon. He took his chief official, Ashpenaz, to pick out all the young men who could be trained to become advisors at the Babylonian court. Ashpenaz searched for teenagers who were healthy, good-looking, and at the top of the class at school. He ordered them to be ready to set off for the court of King Nebuchadnezzar far away. One of the chosen young men was Daniel. He was glad that 3 of his best friends had been picked too. Once they arrived in Babylon, Ashpenaz explained to them what would happen. The Babylonians were not cruel like the Assyrians, and the captives were all well treated. First of all, Ashpenaz himself would teach them to read and write in the Babylonian language. Then they would begin a 3-year university course, studying philosophy, literature, astrology, and the Babylonian religion. Once they had qualified, they would become advisors at court. You will live well, Ashpenaz told them. You are to have the same choice food and wine that is served to the king himself. Although Daniel and his friends were far from God's temple in Jerusalem, they were determined to be loyal and true to God. They did not want to live a life of luxury, accepting special treatment from the king and making themselves his chosen people. They decided to ask for a more simple way of life. "Please let us have plain vegetarian diet," Daniel asked Ashpenaz. "We don't want that royal luxury." "I dare not do as you say," Ashpenaz answered. "If you looked pale and undeferred, I'd be blamed and might be put to death." When Ashpenaz had gone, Daniel repeated his request to the guard who was in charge of them. "Please give it a try," he begged. "Give us plain vegetables to eat and water to drink just for 10 days. Then see if how we look in comparison with the other students." The guard agreed. He would be able to enjoy the special rations of luxury food from the king. After 10 days, the guard examined the 4 very closely. He had to admit that they looked healthier and more full of energy than any of the other young men. So for the 3 years that they were students, the 4 Jewish boys kept to their simple diet and stayed loyal to God and their own people far away. So children, in the story that I have just read to you from Daniel 1, we heard that a new king came in, and his name was a bit of a strange one, but it was called King Nebuchadnezzar. Can you say that? King Nebuchadnezzar. That was his name. Now, he was a new king and he was recruiting. He wanted to find some young men that can come and work for him in his palace, his kingdom. And Daniel was appointed. He was asked to come and be one of those people. And he, along with 3 of his best friends, which was good, came and worked for King Nebuchadnezzar in his palace. And what did they get up to, Tom?
Well, King Nebuchadnezzar, he was a generous king. And he wanted to train them in all sorts of things. We heard about literature and astrology.
So reading and writing and science.
Exactly.
And learning about how the world in those times were existing.
Indeed.
And because they were working for a king, now the king would eat very luxurious food. So probably lots of meat and lots of nice rare beans and things that were grown at that time that were really normally quite difficult to find, and it wouldn't just be the normal food that Daniel was used to eating.
True.
But when one of the servants came to Daniel and said, "We're going to feed you all of this luxury food," what did Daniel say, Tom?
He said he didn't want that luxury food. And he didn't want it because King Nebuchadnezzar, as part of their culture, they would offer their food as a sacrifice to their gods. And this God wasn't the God of Daniel and the God that we've been hearing and learning about. This was a foreign God.
A false god, which Daniel knew, and he only wanted to obey and serve our God. So he said to King Nebuchadnezzar's servant, "I don't want to eat that luxury food. I'm happy eating just vegetables."
That's right.
Have any of you ever said that to mum and dad, that you just want to eat vegetables? You don't want cakes, you don't want sweets, you don't want chocolate eggs? I wonder if any of you have ever said that. But this Daniel, as a teenager, wanted to stay strong, and he wanted to obey God and live the way that he knew and was brought up to live, serving God. And that was just living off the land and eating from vegetables and eating from the land. So he said to the servant, didn't he, "I only want to eat vegetables." But the servant wasn't very impressed. He was worried that King Nebuchadnezzar was going to not be very happy that they weren't eating this luxury, special, expensive food. But Daniel persisted, didn't he, Tom? And he said, he challenged the servant, "Why don't you let me and my 3 friends eat vegetables for a week and see how strong we are at the end of the week?" So he managed to do that. And do you know what, children? At the end of that week, Daniel and his 3 best friends were the strongest of all the students that there were. So the moral of the story there is that vegetables are very good for your body. and make you nice and strong. So remember that when you go for lunch later.
Indeed.
But most importantly, Daniel listened and wanted to follow God's command, and he wanted to make sure that his God was the only God that he served. And we can remember that in our lives today. So even if the world tells us to follow a superstar or a singer or a celebrity, actually we know in our hearts that we are following God, and that we should listen to the words in the Bible and follow his commands.
That's right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this, and to help reinforce this learning, there are some fantastic crafts just in the links underneath this video. If you go through to those PDFs and download those and print them off, I'm sure you'll have lots of fun colouring and filling them in appropriately. So, we'll wrap up this morning with a quick worship time.
Thanks for joining us this morning, everybody. I'm just going to close in a prayer. If we close our eyes, dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you have been with us this morning, and thank you for teaching us about Daniel and his life and how you used him as an adult as well. Father, please help us to follow you and to obey your words, and help us to spend time this week reading your Bible and listening to what it is you're telling us this week. Thank you for food and for food that's good for us, and may you bless our bodies and give us physical strength for the week ahead. Amen.
Amen.
We hope you have a fantastic week, guys. We'll be back next week with our devotional. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.